it's a tragic love story. It's a love story about two people who feel that they are supposed to be together but can't find a way to make it work. And you know, in the end, it's the nature of the story is very simple.
Like so many of us, we're completely driven by what our parents do and the influence of what our parents expected of us. And certainly in the book, and it is a theme in the movie as well, both lead characters are constantly struggling with what they believe their life should end up being.
And it's about the complexity of marriage and how if you don't have honesty within a relationship, then things get buried and built up and pent up and strained, and then the explosions start to happen.
Within the relationship, there is a certain amount of love, but there's a certain amount of expectation of what we had in mind for our own lives.
So much of these relationships, you hear about, you know, it's a compromise or it's a negotiation, and I think one of the compromises is, I will only get this close to you, or I will only ask you to get this close to me.
There was enormous emphasis on conformity and everything, the way people dressed, the same glasses. There was a sense of optimism behind it, but there wasn't an opportunity to individuate yourself from the crowd.
On one level, it's an exploration of the 50s and exploration of that period, but it's not about the 50s. To me, it's a very contemporary story. It's a very modern story. It deals with very, very modern concerns. The story is about a relationship, and that this story is as true now as it was 40 years ago, without a question.
So it's a real interesting analysis of a relationship and two people struggling and at odds and trying their best to make things work.
It has so much in it that's familiar to us, you know, and I think it's really also about, you've got one chance in life. You've got one chance to escape. You've got one chance to live the life you want, and you've got to take it. John Hart came with the, in a sense, godfather of the project, and took the book along with the BBC to Justin Haid, the screenwriter, and that's how it found its way to me.
My production company, Evamere, bought the rights to Revolutionary Road with the BBC. Well, first Kate came on board. Kate felt passionate about this material, and she desperately wanted to do it.
I did really love the story, yes. I first read it about 4 years ago, when I was pregnant with my son, who's now 4, and I just loved it so much. I just loved the honesty of it, the intensity of the writing.
I was an English major at Dartmouth, but I hadn't read this book, and I found out through a number of my writer friends that this was their favorite book of all time. For me, I responded the same way. It appealed to me on that level, just on a literary level. It was so well written, so the dialogue so beautifully expressed.
And so this love affair began. With me and the book and the script. I then discovered that a screenplay had in fact been written. And coincidence of coincidences, Sam was friendly with the guy who had written the screenplay.
It was offered to me as an adaptation job by the BBC. I knew the book because I had read it years before, just as a novel, not thinking about it as a film. And it's a brilliant novel. I couldn't believe my luck when I got offered to adapt a novel this good.
He actually gave an enormous amount of thought and skill to the rendering of this as a movie, and I think he did it really well.
So we just thought, okay, this is meant to be.
And this is a passion project for Kate. She wanted to do this for sure. And finding a director was not an easy process. Sam was finishing Jarhead and really felt at the time that he couldn't focus on it. He wasn't saying no, but it wasn't something that he felt immediately had to do.
And then I had to spend a good year of, you know, quiet and gentle prodding and talks with my husband, convincing him to do it.
The two of them knew that they wanted to work together. This material gave them the opportunity to do it. In a sense, they're at that point in their lives, too, that these characters are. Sam came around to wanting to do this movie as much as for himself as for Kate.
For me, April, in a sense, she is a heroic character, you know, even though she does terrible things. And I think that's one of the reasons that I was so attracted to it. And I don't want to put words into her mouth, but I think that's one of the reasons that Kate was attracted too. And for me, purely objectively, and you know, you'll have to believe me, but obviously I'm biased. If I had nothing to do with Kate, if Kate was just an actress out there working alongside all the other actresses of her generation, she would have been the first person I thought of to play this role. And in a sense, I had to be absolutely sure, even more sure of that than I normally would be, because, you know, you're taking on a whole other host of things when you cast your wife. You know, not only the dynamic, you know, our home life, for example, but also, you know you're going to be scrutinized in a different way.
They knew that they needed to work together, to spend the time together to make this movie. And I think the best work that anybody does when it comes from a very personal place.
All of those things were aligned, and I thought, okay, well, you know, if there was ever an opportunity to work together, this is it.
Okay, ready, guys? Okay, stand by for picture.
23 Baker, take 11. Marker.
Maybe you should think about getting dressed. It's almost time for lunch. It took a good 2.5 years to finally nail Mr. DiCaprio.
I think Kate said that they just got along very, very well when they did the Titanic. She always wanted Leo. She said she'd been talking to Leo for 2 years now to come in and do this part.
And I had to be very good about that. Leo's one of those people, if you bombard him with stuff, or if you try and get something from him, he just pushes you away and runs as far as he can in the opposite direction. So I had to be very, very good about how I mentioned this to him, when I would bring it up. You know, so every kind of year or so, I just throw it into a conversation. I'm like, did you ever read that script? It's really good. I think it's definitely going to happen. And just plant these little seeds.
She sort of called me up and said, look, I want you to take a look at this script again. I think it's ready. My husband, Sam Mendes, is directing it.
I think that for Leo, it's the opportunity to work with a director like Sam in the service of material like this.
The dynamic between April and Frank's character was so powerful and so realistic, and it really felt like you were a fly on the wall listening to an intimate relationship disintegrate.
You don't hate me or anything?
No. No, of course I don't.
I've never read dialogue like this before in any type of film that I've ever, any type of script that I ever read.
He's just an astonishing actor. So pairing the two of them together are the two of our great actors of our time.
Within literally months of him saying yes, we were making the movie, because Leo had this window of time.
Because when Leo decided he wanted to do it, we were 10 weeks away from shooting. And it's a big movie, it's a period film, and suddenly we were in pre-production. So I needed to call someone who I knew and trusted could get it done starting, yesterday.
The amazing thing about Sam is, he was very clear that he wanted to do this with Kate and a star. When Leo came on board, we were 14 weeks out from shooting. A period movie, 1955.
There were two other producers who I asked to be part of the project. Bobby Cohen, who worked with me on Jarhead, and I felt was a great hands-on producer who could really put the nitty-gritty of it together on a daily basis. And then on a creative side, I asked Scott Rudin to join, who has produced theatre that I've done and I've worked with in the past, because of his skill with script and his sort of astuteness on set. They were very they were present on set, but they didn't get in the way at all. And once or twice a day, someone would sort of sidle up to me with a thought or a note, and most of the time they were very good ones. So I'm always happy to incorporate good ideas, doesn't matter who they come from.
Kate was always involved from the very beginning, and I think that Leo was always in Sam's mind. And when Leo, with his very busy schedule, became available and read and loved the script and said, we can do it, I think it was a pretty, dynamic and very exciting combination.
Even I was surprised by quite how amazing the whole thing felt. That it had all come together in this way, these coincidences, that it was Leo and I again, that I was working with Sam for the first time. It was a real sort of dream in many ways to finally have made the film and to have been a part of it in such a great way, with my husband directing and my best friend playing my husband. It was just incredible, because that's what I had hoped might happen. We didn't shoot anything in a studio, nothing at all, which posed its own set of problems, because of course in a studio, when you're trying to light a scene or get equipment in, you just take a wall out to make more space. And we couldn't do that because we were really shooting in a very, very small house.
So Sam was very conscious about being in a real location, in a real sort of suburb, and in this real environment.
because Sam wanted to be able to shoot continuously from exterior locations to interior locations, which obviously you can't do when you're building on a soundstage. It was really hard because the tricky thing that happens is that you need a house that is the right size, appropriate size for what they could afford. But of course, what they could really afford would be too small to shoot in.
There. See the little white one? Sweet, isn't it? The perky way it sits there on its little slope. Charming, isn't it?
Finding the Wheeler house was quite an ordeal.
Oh, yes.
The reason for that was that we discovered that most of the houses that were built in the 50s were a good deal smaller than the houses that we can actually shoot in.
And there's plenty of room for kids, as you can see. I'll leave the two of you alone a moment, see how it feels.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. The square footage of a house that was built in 1955 was just smaller. And finding a house that we could actually use, that we could film in, necessitated that we actually look for a house that was built slightly later.
And the process of shooting it was very hard because we were in a very small space and it was very hot. It was 90 degrees most of the time in this sort of Connecticut summer, and we were in a tiny little house. You know, and I think people don't realize when they watch a movie the difference between location shooting and being on a set.
It does have the picture window, though. I guess there's no escaping that.
Still, I don't suppose one picture window is going to destroy our personalities, huh?
And cut.
Very clear. Nice.
So we probably looked at, not exaggerating, 200 houses before finding this one. And then we just lucked out that there happens to be a little ridge behind the house with another house that just worked out perfectly for the Campbell house. So
that location really helped us in feeling claustrophobic and constricted, and it made both of our characters want to really lash out at each other. This small suburban house in the middle of Connecticut, it really helped our performances to be sort of stuck in this environment for months at a time, unable to go anywhere else.
You know, a set is air-conditioned and you can move and you can kind of breathe, but this level of reality for the actors involved.
John, how about some fresh air? What do you say?
You're actually there. It is much easier to put yourself in the shoes of the characters, but on the other hand, it's very difficult to shoot.
We're running from the hopeless emptiness of the whole life here.
The hopeless emptiness.
Now you've said it. Plenty of people are on to the emptiness, but it takes real guts to see the hopelessness.
The whole crew was smashed into there 24 hours a day, and it's like we couldn't escape.
You get Roger Deakins, who, you know, is one of the great cinematographers of the world, you know, cramming himself over and over again, you know, with a huge camera. And, you know, there were days when, frankly, he would rather have been in a little bit more space.
He had so little natural light sometimes coming through the windows, so, you know, quite often we'd be in a room that would feel as though we were actually inside a white tent, because he would have rigged up all these just white sheets to bounce just light off of from anywhere, wherever the light was coming from.
Action.
Listen, there's something I should have mentioned earlier. Bart, I'm going to be leaving the firm in the fall.
Another outfit?
No, it's not another outfit, no.
No, look, Frank, is it a question of money? Because if it is, there's no reason we can't get together on
Well,
the
I
same
sure
day.
appreciate that, but no, it's...
And he has done this just incredible job. Everybody looks so real, you know. It doesn't have that sort of soft focusy, let's make everyone good because we can thing. It doesn't look like that. You know, you can really see every mark on our face, every scar. And I like that, I really do, because sometimes I think that, you know, when you watch a movie and the actors look sort of out of reach somehow, they don't look quite real because they look so perfect, you know. And Sam didn't want that. He wanted us to look very much like human beings, the type of people you might bump into on the street.
That for us, there were very few lighting instruments in the way, and so it gave kind of privacy that we felt between the actors, which really enhanced the work.
The psychological difference between shooting on location and shooting on set is a very, very important part of the making of this film. There's something about the claustrophobia of of the way we shot it that I think is actually rendered.
And that is the great thing about shooting a location movie and finding real locations, is that you actually add and enhance what the storytelling is.
And you do believe that there's a garden outside and that the rest of the suburbia sits outside the window. And you do believe when you're, you know, in the Knox building and you're watching Frank at work, or when you're in New York restaurants or in hotel lobbies or any of those things, that you're in real places.
It's not like you can see it as, in other words, a light switch goes on, but I think that all of the elements, when you're on that set and you sit in that house and everyone's in their clothes and the props are right, and that they're using the lighters that they used in the 50s, and that they're using the glasses, I do think you see the actors sort of, their body language does change. The way they sit, the way they talk.
I think when you have the real environment, it's always stimulating for a cast and for the director to have a real setting in a real place. We were very close to the real, I think, area there in Connecticut.
We were very lucky to have Christy Zaya as production designer, who is, you know, designed every movie you've ever liked, practically, like Silence of the Lambs and Goodfellas and God knows what else, and is a fantastic local designer because she also knows New York very well.
After I read a script, I usually go and I do my own research. So then I'd have meetings with Sam and we'd look at pictures, and things that we liked collectively would become part of a visual Bible for the film.
She has a sense of how to, you know, adapt them beautifully, but in a very, very low-key, unostentatious way.
Working with Sam is really exciting because he is a very visual person. So it was very easy for me to put a picture in front of him and he'd say, yeah, you know, this is what I think makes sense. And so we wound up just going through picture after picture of all the different subjects that we are dealing with in this movie.
April, honey, how about a dance, huh?
Not right now. The design of the movie is just spectacular. I mean, you do actually feel as though you are watching a movie that was in fact made in the 50s. I mean, it has this incredibly authentic feel to it. It really, the design is just brilliant. It's just brilliant.
It brought back images that I had remembered as a kid, seeing my father go to work and what my mother looked like.
The world is, it's a world of men, you know, it's a world, it's an old, that 50s world of men and their secretaries, you know. The men go out for the lunches and the secretaries do the typing and have the affairs.
Knowing what you can do without.
Downtown New York still has these amazing old office buildings, and one of them was completely empty, so we shot there.
Imagine what she had to recreate. She had to build an office, 1955, downtown to every detail, as well as look after maybe 20 different distinct locations.
The Knox building was harder to find because we wanted there to be this sense of real antique architectural element, and we got lucky because there's a city building that was nearby that we could use. And we were very lucky to find that location.
We shot in the Algonquin Hotel, we shot in restaurants and streets, we shot downtown, closed down, you know, half of Tribeca for a Saturday, and shot street scenes and Frank walking to the office.
So there's one scene at the Knox building on the outside. We bring in 1955. And 1955 costumes, 1955 cars, just changed over and within a day shot the exterior. But when you look at it in the film, it looks like it's a full shot of New York on a crowded city street.
The canvas, the world is there, the landscape that they exist in.
We even have the Stamford Advocate from 1955, May 9th. We did a lot of research to find every paper, pretty much every paper that was around. Even the Hartford Courant we have, because our commuters are coming from Connecticut. And we had to find originals and then reprint them. Period briefcases, which Eric here is handing out. We have a number 200 extras. These 200 extras we've been using in a lot of scenes. They get dressed differently every time, and it's been a challenge.
I think the costumes and the makeup and the hair also immediately put somebody into a different time and place. In this case, when you see a sea of people all wearing hats and suits, and it's, you know, it's clearly period, you know for a fact they're feeling it and we're feeling it.
We took over Grand Central Station and dressed everyone there in 1950s garb, and it was a very important sort of pivotal scene for the audience's understanding of, I think, my character and what my life is like. That one image is really iconic for me in the movie, and I'm really happy with the way Sam shot that. It really portrayed exactly what I think my character's struggle was in the film. Conforming to his existence and being miserable about it, but at the same time not wanting to let that go.
The crowd scenes, which also established the look of the period, and which act in a way almost like scenery, placing our principal actors in the time and place where the film takes place.
And Albert Wolski, who's our costume designer, is just wonderful. He also incredibly meticulous and found a tremendous amount of vintage clothes that we're using, and also designed and built some clothes from scratch.
You see me with the tweed suit on and the hat, walking to work along with thousands of other men doing the exact same thing.
I mean, standing in Grand Central Station and seeing 200 extras all walking in wearing gray and tan suits with briefcases and hats, it was very exciting.
I didn't want to ooh and ah at the world. I didn't want to elicit gasps. I just wanted to create a real environment in which they're sort of lost.
I mean, I think you see it in the way that the city is photographed in this movie, is that there's a real anonymity to it.
And it has this wonderful movement as a movie, I think, from this huge canvas of New York in the 50s and the 40s, and the city and the commuters and the crowded streets, and even the streets of the suburbs. And gradually the canvas, the layers of the external world fall away. Frank's very, very lonely, even though he's with thousands and thousands of people all the time, and that feeling of being alone in the city was something that was very important to understanding his character. And simultaneously, April is genuinely alone in the house, and the house, which progressively during the course of the movie becomes almost a cell out of which she can't escape. So the two things had to be in counterpoint. Frank in the mass of people and April alone. Those things needed to be there to express the central theme of the film. To me, I think what's extraordinary about Revolutionary Road is that it, even though it was written in the 50s, and even though on one level it's a portrait of an era and a portrait of a community, it is also a universal story. And as time has progressed, and as the genre of suburban fiction has grown and grown and grown, this, which is the grandfather of all suburban novels, has become more and more a universal tale about a marriage, about a man and a woman, and less a satire or an observation of suburbia in the 50s. It's really a very straightforward story in many ways. It's a couple who were once happy and have somehow found themselves living in the suburbs with 2 children and have made the compromises that most people make in that process.
It's really about who we think we are, who we think we want to be. And when offered the opportunity to be that person you think you've always wanted to be, whether or not you actually want to do it, whether or not you actually want to expose yourself.
That 50s mentalities of the man having to go to work every day, putting food on the table for his family, and losing all identity in the process.
Even though it's set in a very recognizable 1950s suburban landscape, I don't think it's not about the suburbs, it's much more about grander human frailties.
When does Frank realize that what April is saying is essential to the survival of their marriage? And I think all of us will relate to that notion as you get one chance with somebody that you're with to seize it. If you don't, it can all crumble and fall apart.
In order to survive in a world like the world in this film, you have to be numb or not paying attention or willing to surrender any sense of discovery about life.
She says to Frank, it takes courage to live the life you want, and he doesn't have the courage. And that's his tragedy, and that's also what the book is dealing in, and I suppose that's as true now as it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago. There are 95% of humanity live, as the man said, lives of quiet desperation, Have you got the courage to get out of it?
You know, I think that part of what the book is about, and therefore the movie is about, kind of the crisis of what is a modern man, what is a modern woman, and what should the behavior be like. You know, what are the standards, what are the rules, and they're kind of making it up as they go along, because we're in the mid-50s, we're at this kind of cusp point culturally.
And I think that's why it's a universal story at the end of the day, is because it's saying you don't have to accept the life you have. If you're not happy, there are ways of changing it. You just have to be brave.
There's no clear-cut good guy or bad guy. There's no one that you could clearly point the finger at in the relationship. There's no one that you could say was responsible for the disintegration of this sort of beautiful, loving relationship that they have.
But inside,
However terrible the behavior is between the two central characters, however much cruelty, however much manipulation, they retain your sympathies. And you care about them enough to want them to succeed. And when they don't, it is tragic.
This is it, you know? This is the truth.
Some people might identify with more things about her character or my character, you never know.
I felt that way once too.
But that's what made it compelling, that's what made it interesting, that's what made it a human story. That's what made it something that certainly I wanted to be a part of.
It was so fulfilling for me on so many levels. As an actress, to get to play a part that I had so longed to play for such a long time, and to see it come together in this way was just, I mean, I really could not believe it. Sam has such an incredible instinct for material. You know, as a director, I don't think he's drawn to this particular genre, this particular sort of atmosphere, backdrop for a film, the suburban backdrop. But I think that he is fascinated, like I think a lot of us are, with how other people live and choices other people make, especially in relationships. It's so much to do with particularly April's unhappiness and disappointment within herself and her own life that ends up destroying the things that she loves the most. And that, I know, is something that is eternally fascinating to a lot of people, and certainly fascinating to Sam.
I grew up in the suburbs in England, so for me, the suburbs do feel like a very familiar territory, even though they're American suburbs and this is a period film. But I don't view it as a movie about the suburbs. I think that it's very important that what's at the heart of this movie, first and foremost, is a tragic love story, and that's what I held in my head as I was working on the film. And the suburbs and the city are the backdrop. My feelings about the movie and about the book Revolutionary Road are as mysterious as, you know, as conflicted and confused as my feelings about all relationships and life in general. I mean, nothing is clear, you know. That there's a very deep wisdom and insight in the book. It's profound, and it's why it's great literature rather than just a potboiler or a simple thriller. It's because it deals in layers of meaning, which we're striving to achieve in the film, which I hope we manage to find.
You ready, April? It's time.
Thank you.
Good luck, good luck, good luck.
Good luck, April. Go get him.
Break a leg, April.
You too.
Hello. I should have a ticket under the name Frank Wheeler. Thanks so much.
Frank!
Hi, Millie.
Oh, God.
How's Shep holding up, huh?
He is so nervous. What about April?
Oh, she's doing okay, I think.
Fingers crossed. Oh, I'm so sorry.
How's it going? Hi, fellas.
Ready, Shep?
It's all over me.
Listen, we'll be fine.
Please, sis, please.
Wouldn't you like to be loved by me?
Yes, Gabrielle. I should like to be loved by you.
April! April! April!
Don't yell, Daddy.
I can do this, okay?
It's already done.
Look, April, I don't know what happened last night, but whatever it was, I just want to say that I'm sorry, okay?
Right. Thank you.
Why did Mommy sleep on the couch?
I don't know, sweetheart. I guess she felt like it.
Daddy, Daddy, Daddy! When will the path be done?
Oh, I don't know, honey.
Is that a worm?
No, no, no. It's a root. Don't get too close now. You don't want to lose your hand, do you?
Why does the shovel make sparks?
Well, because it's hitting rock. When you hit rock with steel, you get a spark.
Then why don't you take the rock out?
Ah, well, that's what I'm trying to do. Now, why don't you kids go find something else to do, huh? You have this whole yard to play in.
Wee!
No, no. Don't throw dirt in the hole.
Wee!
Don't do that.
Wee!
Don't do that.
Wee!
Don't throw
Wee,
dirt in
wee,
the hole,
wee.
Mikey.
Do it again, Mikey.
Don't do that.
Wee! Wee!
Don't do that! I kept telling you and telling you! Oh, honey, don't cry, honey.
I guess it is kind of funny when you think about it. Bunch of grown-ups up there making asses out of themselves.
Well, I thought it was wonderful. You all were wonderful.
You know, I just thought of something.
Well?
Tomorrow's my birthday.
Well, Frank!
Happy birthday!
I'm gonna be 30 years old. Can you beat that?
Yeah, I can beat it. I'm 32. Millie here's well into
Shepherd,
it.
Sears, Campbell, don't you dare. But to the end of your 20s.
It's no big deal. I don't care much about birthdays anyway.
No? Oh, I love birthdays. Does that make me decadent?
Well, they all just kind of run together for me. Except for one. It was during the war. We were in some goddamn field in the middle of Belgium, and it was the middle of the night, and for no reason whatsoever, I reached down and I poked the guy next to me, and I said, "Hey, fella, what day is it anyway?" And wouldn't you know it, it turned out to be my birthday. So news gets around. It's Wheeler's birthday. It's Wheeler's birthday. And up and down the line, one by one, they all started singing, "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Wheeler. Happy birthday to you." The entire goddamn First Division. I couldn't believe my ears. Wonder if the Germans heard that one, huh?
Jesus. That is a hell of a story.
That must have been something.
Oh, it was. What?
You told him that story last year.
Oh. Right.
Pretty soon I'll be coming to the city every day. You excited to meet Mr. Fields?
Yeah.
And he mentioned after lunch, maybe we'd all see a ball game or something. That sound good to you?
Yeah.
What do you think about your old man becoming a big shot?
But doff her girdle, and by God, her ass explodes like an inflatable raft. Morning.
Hi.
Hello.
Now that, on the other hand,
Bye.
And there's plenty of room for kids, as you can see. I'll leave the two of you alone a moment, see how it feels.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. So, what do you think?
I guess I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's so quiet.
I'll tell you, it's even bigger than my parents' house.
Won't you miss the city?
Not the cockroaches. You're not going to be able to climb 4 flights much longer. Hey, listen. Nothing's permanent, right?
Right. It does have the picture window, though. I guess there's no escaping that.
Yes, love. Still, I don't suppose one picture window is going to destroy our personalities, huh?
April, your father's here.
And she said, "Young man, you're drunk." And he said, "You're right, Mrs. Roosevelt, I am. And you're ugly. But here's the difference, Mrs. Roosevelt. In the morning, I'll be sober." Well, thank you for a lovely tea, Aunt Claire. Now let's see what we have in here, A man ought never to travel without a fresh supply of bangles and spangles. Can't ever tell when he might come across a pretty girl. Wait a minute. Here's something. There you are, my darling. Keep it safe for me, will you?
Can I come with you?
Next time.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning. I wonder if you can help me.
Of course.
My husband and I are moving to Paris.
Oh, how nice. May I take your name?
Yes, Mrs. April Wheeler. My husband's name is Frank Wheeler.
They're moving overseas to Paris. Howard, did you hear what I said? Turn your hearing aid up, Howard. I said the Wheelers are moving to Paris.
Oh, that's nice.
Is it?
Isn't it?
I asked if he'd taken a job there. Nope. He said just like that. Nope, no job. Can you imagine? And I'd always thought they were such solid young people.
Is there any more cake? I thought we had some of that coconut cake.
The awkward thing is, I've already asked if we could bring John around for a visit. And there hardly seems to be much point to it anymore.
Why?
Well, because. What's the value of introducing John if they're going to disappear in the fall? He needs permanent people.
Yes, of course.
Why can't people be more...
Hello.
Hi.
You have any trouble this morning with Mrs. Jorgensen, I mean?
No, she didn't say anything.
Listen, I had a swell time yesterday, and I hope you did too. I just hope you don't have any regrets, because I sure don't.
No regrets.
Good. Well, then I hope we can be just friends, huh?
All right. I hope so too.
Okay. Knowing what you've got, comma. Knowing what you need, comma. Knowing what you can do without. Dash. That's inventory control.
Mr. Wheeler.
Yes.
I'm sorry. It looks like Mr. Fields won't be able to see you today after all. I'm just sorry you had to come all this way. And you brought your boy with you, too. Well, a nice day in the city. That's fine. Fine.
Come on, Frank. Let's go.
Please don't leave.
It's okay.
Am I dreaming?
It's all right. Everything's going to be all right.
Damn your hide, Franklin, for holding out on us. Mark my words, gentlemen. We'll all be taking our marching orders from Mr. Wheeler before too long.
I wouldn't count on it now.
Frank, call for you. Says it's urgent.
Excuse me, fellas.
Frank Wheeler.
Frank? Frank, it's me, Shep. You here?